Evening everybody, my name is Anto, coming to you live from the end of the world with another stream. It's been a couple of weeks. We didn't do this last week because I wasn't feeling very well. But we're back to do more collaborative world building. I'm going to do a little bit something different to kick off this evening. We are going to be doing some Dual Cities of Talavar world building a little bit later on. That's my next campaign setting that we've been building out for the last couple of months. We are going to be doing some of that a little bit later on. But to start with, I have a new world building method that I'm in the middle of building out and finalizing, and I thought I'd bring it to the stream and get some thoughts and some input and some feedback on it and have a play around with that before we dive into doing the Dual Cities stuff and all the goodness with the pins. So we're going to go ahead and finish pressing all of the buttons, wait for all the notifications to go out, wait for everyone to come in and say hello. While we are waiting, go ahead and say good evening in the chat. I hope you're all keeping well in my absence in the last week. Let's go ahead and press all of the buttons and do all of the things. And make sure everything is working as it should be. Which I think it is. That is done. That button is pressed. All of those big red buttons are pressed. That one is sorted. This one is sorted. So we should. All the buttons should be pressed. Everything should be working fine. This first time in the stream, later on in the evening, we are going to be doing some collaborative world building. The way that that works is just beneath the chat there. There's a little gold coin icon. You click on that, and that'll give you access to our gold crown channel points. You can spend those channel points, which you get just for watching the stream, on a whole bunch of stuff like naming locations, naming NPCs, naming different kinds of things, placing monsters in the world, and a bunch of other good stuff as well. So that is that down there. If you're not following, go ahead and hit the follow button, but I can't imagine that you wouldn't already be following because we've only just started, so it should only just be followers who've gotten the notification. Right then, so this evening we are going to be working on Doppelganger, which is my world building generation method that I'm working on at the moment. So some of you may be familiar with some of these kind of acronym based world building methods. So there's things like grapes and sperm and hermetics, I believe is another one that I've seen. There are a bunch of different ones out there, and they're all essentially trying to shorthand the world building process to say, hey, you've got an area of your world that you want to work on. Approach it by looking at all of these different areas. But my big problem with a lot of them, and I've used some of these to world build professionally. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel where I talk about how I use some of these acronym based methods to world build for professional clients. My problem with them is none of them are super complete and none of them go into as much detail as I would like. So I've been working for the last week thinking, what are the elements of world building that I always have to add on to these methods, and how can I package them in a way that has a nice mnemonic, a nice acronym. And we've landed on Doppelganger. So the letters mean defense, occultism, people's politics, economics, law, geography, assets, nemesis, goals, executive, and religion. I was trying to remember it without having to scroll through and see, but I did remember it. So gold star for me. And the whole purpose of this is, once it's finished, it's a thing that you're going to get, that you're going to be able to sit down and go, right, okay, I've got an area of my world, and ask yourself all of these questions to help develop it out. Lego Firehawk says, is this sheet available for view? Not yet, because we're not finished with it. That's what I'm doing this evening. I'm going to be making a video for YouTube tomorrow with going more into depth and more concise kind of on this whole process. The sheet and a worksheet are going to be available with that towards the end of the week on Friday. Welcome, Lord Katka. Welcome. So we'll take a scroll through here. So this is inside Affinity Designer, which is one of the Affinity suite of tools, which are the ones that I use. I've got all my side tabs and things turned off, but you can see if I go ahead and turn them back on, we get unlimited power. But for now, we don't need unlimited power. So all I've got here is a bunch of different boxes set out very much like the original Grapes infographic that went round on the Worldbuilding subreddits many moons ago. And we've got all of our different headings set out. So like I said, defense, occultism, peoples, politics, economics, law, geography, assets, nemesis, goals, executive, and religion. So what I want to do in the first part of the stream is just kind of go through this, see if anyone has any suggestions for the kinds of questions that you want to be asking yourselves when it comes to thinking about these different parts of your world, and build this out a little bit, get it all ready to go in depth with and make a worksheet for this week's coming video. And then we're going to put this to the test, and we're going to use it to develop some areas of the dual cities in the second part of the stream. So if I zoom in here, you can see, based on the popular world building methods such as Grapes, Doppelganger aims to give a more robust framework to use to develop your fictional worlds. It was important to me that we had a fantasy appropriate word, and something that wasn't already out there in kind of this format, and something that was catchy, and doppelgangers are catchy. So you can see the whole premise of the sheet is headings and then questions. So like with defense, does your region have a military? Is that military professional or like a standing army? Or do they operate more on a conscription service where people have to do a certain number of years or have to have a mandatory training and then can be called on at any time? And then we have, how are ordinary people protected? So do you have like police or city watchers? Is it more of a case of like a lawless expanse where you have sheriffs and things like that? When we go into occultism, is there magic in this world? Is it accepted by the state? Do normal people know about it? And as we go through, we're going to add a whole bunch more questions to all of these options. Everybody's an adventurer, attack at your own risk. Yeah. Flight path acquired, howdy. So in peoples, we've got what intelligence races live in the region, what is the dominant population, what are the minority populations, meaning the smaller quantity in number, are there any enclave populations, so a group of like for like people living in a specific location. Politics, we've got what's the political system in your region, are they more authoritarian, libertarian, and we can use politics and economics to kind of start building a political compass for the region of your world or for the governments of your world, which can sometimes be really useful when you're world building. Not always, but sometimes. In economics, we've got, how does the economic system here work? So is it currency or is it just bartering? Is it blood deals? Like if you're in an infernal realm, you're probably not going to use gold. You're going to use some more sinister method of bartering. So you want to think about what your economic system is. Is the government economically left or right? And then are the common people economically comfortable? So that gives you a sense of kind of what sort of tone you're getting into when you go into this region. So if the common people in a region are economically poor, you're going to see more kind of commoners and more squalor and poorer infrastructure and all those kind of things. Whereas if the common people are more economically comfortable, you're going to see things like greater infrastructure, better roads, better kind of systems in place, things like that. And then we've got a section for law, like who makes the laws, how the law's made. Geography covers everything physical about the world or about the region that you're working on. So what does it look like? What's the climate look like? Is there any magical elements? And what is some information on kind of the cosmology? So do you have multiple moons or multiple suns? Is there a great big portal in the sky to another dimension? That kind of thing. Then for assets, that's asking yourself, what does this region have in abundance, or what do they have that is valuable? So that might be exports of food or fuel, any technology, precious metals, materials. It could be, your asset could be an army. If you think of what's the region in Game of Thrones where the Unsullied come from? The Unsullied would be an asset for that region, because it is something that up until Dany arrives is an export for that region. You know, this highly trained mercenary military force is an asset for that region to export out. Then we have Nemesis, so who are the enemies for the region? How did they become enemies? How did this region and their enemies become enemies? That's a lot of enemies. Are they engaged in an active conflict? What do their enemies want? Then we come to goals, so what are the short, medium and long-term goals for the region that you're building out? And then you'd think about how can they go ahead and achieve those goals. Then we come to executive, so who's the leader, who's at the very top of the political ladder in your region? How did they come to power? What do they offer people that means that how did they get into power? You know, why are they the leader? What's their biggest strength? What's their greatest weakness? That really helps you think about, especially in a lot of fantasy regions where you're going to have a monarch of some kind. That really helps you narrow down the personality and some of the attributes of your monarch, which is really useful then to use as a contextual clue to help understand how the people view that monarch. And then finally we come to religion. So are there gods? If there are, what is the primary religion of the region? How do people worship? Stuff like that. So that's broad overview. So we're going to go through this, and what I'd love for you all to do is just throw some questions, some world building questions for each of these, and we'll go through in turn and maybe dip around a little bit if necessary. But we'll start with defense. So what kind of questions do we want to ask ourselves when we're thinking about the defense of a region? This is specifically world building on a larger scale, so it's outside. You could use it for a village or a town, but I'm thinking more on a kind of regional nation scale, state scale, that kind of level. So why is their defense the way it is? So we've got, do they have a military? Is it professional? How are they protected? Why is their defense the way it is? I'm trying to think of a way to reword that, because I know what you mean. Why do they choose that option? Whatever their option for defense is, why do they choose that? So that might be, if you are an island nation, then you're going to go and have a whole bunch of ships and fleet, because that makes sense. If you are up in the mountains, you might choose kind of more stoic, stalwart defenses, because you've got a lot of natural defenses around you, so you need a fewer number of defenders, so you can focus more on equipment defense and things like that. Are there any physical defenses like castles, walls and watchtowers? So let's go ahead and go, what does the region's physical what do the region's physical defenses look like? Are we? That's a good question. We are using C in defense and not F. Not F, not S. What do the region's physical defenses look like? Do they have any special weapons, magic, guns? That's a great question. Do they have any unique or noteworthy elements? And we need to go ahead and make this smaller. So let's go ahead and drop it down to 12. What are the weaknesses in their defenses? That is a great question. Noteworthy. Nope. It's because we didn't put a Y on there. That's a U, not a Y. What are the weaknesses in their defenses? So they have a military. Is it professional or conscripted? how are the ordinary people protected, what do the region's physical defenses look like, why is the defense the way it is, reword that one. Do they have any unique or noteworthy defensive elements? What are the weaknesses in their defenses? So what we'll probably do is go in and add some like contextual elements to each of these, similar to how we've started doing like in politics, but in a tighter, tidier way for the final one, to kind of contextualize some of the questions. I think that this is the biggest truth they could deal with, is an interesting part in world building. Is that a typo? Truth? What is the bigger... is that threat? That feels like threat. That they could deal with is an interesting part in world building. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you mean threat. What is the biggest threat they could deal with? So that might come about organically, from thinking about what their defenses are in terms of what do they physically have and what unique elements they have versus what their weaknesses are. But thinking about what regions in your world can deal with like world-ending level threats is a pretty interesting way to think about your world building, for sure. Wouldn't that fall under Nemesis? Could do, but if I'm interpreting the question properly, it would be a hypothetical threat, so not in terms of what's their biggest current threat, but like, could this region deal with a Tarask? The answer should always be no, even if the rules always say that the answer is yes. But that kind of thing, what is the highest level of threat that they're equipped to deal with, rather than what is the highest level threat that they're currently facing. Currently facing, absolutely put in Nemesis. But the kind of conceptual threat, what is the biggest threat that we might have to face that we could reasonably like? For an example of human beings, up until very recently, the question was, is an asteroid the biggest threat that we could deal with? And now we know that it's not, because they tested it out and knocked it off course. So good job, humanity. Good job, Bruce Willis. Then let's think about occultism. So occultism will cover magic, the paranormal, anything occulty and thaumatological, anything in that sphere. But obviously we're trying to fit it in the acronym, so occultism fits better than magic. So the questions that we start with is there magic item? Are there magic item? My brain, we're like 20 minutes in and my brain is already soup. It's been a long day. Is there magic in the region? Is magic accepted by the state? Do normal people know about magic? Are magic items restricted? That is a great question. Is the sale and possession of magic items controlled? Can people in this region even craft magical items? That's something that I've been exploring in the Dual Cities, kind of figuring out where the different levels of magical item crafters and where the highest levels of spellcaster services are in the different areas, and that's been really useful. So who can wield magic? Who can wield magic? It's always, I prefer E, except when it's not. Who can wield magic? Good shout, Phoenix, with the save your work. I can actually save my work and it not take 8 million years, because we're not in Legend Keeper right now. Who can wield magic? And that would be a question of, like, are there magical schools? Or is it more innate? If I can say, like in Pathfinder 2nd edition, a level could be useful, maybe placing some uncommon rare items. Exactly. So what I've been doing in the Dual Cities map is been going around and saying, right, okay, this region, do they sell magic items? What's the highest level magical item they sell? Do they sell magical weapons? And the same question. And then what is the highest level spell casting service available in this region, and who offers that highest level? And that gives you a really good way of looking at like a multi-nation area or a multi-region area and going, what are the strengths and weaknesses magically in these different places? And it also means that from the game master's perspective, you can go, right, okay, I've got a player who's a sorcerer. I know who the most powerful sorcerer in this region is. I've got a player that wants to buy magic items. They want a magic sword. Well, the highest level magical weapon they're going to be able to get is in this region. And it's really useful for that logistical side of things. Hey, I can't stick around, but just wanted to say I really appreciate your content on YouTube. You've been a huge help. Well, thank you very much for dropping in and for the kind words. I very much appreciate it. What is considered illegal magic? What kinds of magic / items are illegal? That's not how you spell illegal. Let's go ahead and drop that down to 12. We also probably want to reduce the line separation, but we can format that later. So, is there magic in the region? Yes or no? Is magic accepted by the state? Do normal people know about magic? Is the sale and possession of magical items controlled? Can people in the region craft magical items? Who can wield magic specifically, like other groups? What kinds of magic and or items are illegal? What else can we ask about magic? I already want to use this system. It's great already. Hopefully it'll be super useful. The intention is to make this pretty graphic that I can share everywhere, and then make a more like worksheet version that is just plain and has a bunch of space for you to write in information about your region. Because obviously this is all pretty and it's fine, but you might just want to print something off to put in your like GM binder and fill it in. Maybe keying off the question of normal people know about magic. What do normal people think about magic? Are they suspicious of it, envious? Excellent. What do they think of magic and the people who practice it? So that's a great question, because that will tell you a lot about how NPCs will interact with your spellcasting characters. So something that I have been in the middle of building up for the Dual Cities is the idea that while not everyone in the world will have personally interacted with a spellcaster and have seen magic firsthand, it's pervasive enough that everyone knows about it. And to someone that's never experienced it, the thing that they know the most is the concept of a spellcasting focus, and then when you cast spells, there is like a runic manifestation. Those two things together mean that there is potential for kind of like almost like the Jedi and their lightsabers, like how there is a moment in Phantom Menace where there's an exchange between characters, and one of them is like, well, how do you know I didn't just kill a Jedi and I'm just carrying a lightsaber and I'm not actually a Jedi? I like that concept when it comes to magic, that someone could be carrying a magical focus, and that just signals to people this person knows magic, even if it isn't necessarily true. Are any schools or magic more favorable or more valuable a skill? And what false information about magic do they believe? Lies is too strong a word. What mistruths are there about magic in this region? Is mistruths not a word? Misconceptions, that's the word. That is the word. I said, it's a long day. Who can wield it? What kind of magic items are there? What misconceptions are there about magic? That's a really useful one to know about any popular misconceptions. Like I say, one of the things that I'm building out in the Dual Cities is to have this belief that just someone who's carrying a spellcasting focus is by default a spellcaster, and there will certainly be instances where there are going to be unscrupulous, like roguish NPCs that will take advantage of that fact. Whereas the major forgetfulness that keeps playing with Adam, it's sleep. Sleep is what keeps playing with my brain. It's recently decided that Sunday was the best day to go and start swimming. I started swimming again recently, so it's like get up well before I'm ready to be alive and in the world, and drag myself to the pool and spend an hour swimming, and it just wipes me out for the whole day. And then like 12 hours later, just as my body is ready to go to sleep, it's stream time. What is the most feared and revered spellcaster? That's a great question. Let's go ahead and is the most revered, feared spellcaster in the region. So questions like that are great for building kind of those nuggets of backstory for your world. So for the Dual Cities, certainly for a large part of the Talavar region, the most revered and feared spellcaster would have been the Subjugator, the previous emperor of the Dusk Empire. So even if someone in that region had never seen magic been performed, never met a spellcaster, they would have heard of the Subjugator and the incredible sorceries that he could commit. So I'm feeling pretty good about occultism. So let's think about peoples. So starting off with, what intelligent races do we have in this region? What is the dominant minority and enclave populations? This is a really useful kind of trio of things to think about, especially when you are building settlements. So when you come to build a settlement, thinking about, right, what is the dominant population in this settlement? So what kind of faces are my players going to see the most of? What are some of the minority populations? So what intelligent races are the players going to see and not be surprised by? So you might go into a settlement and the dominant population would be humans, minority populations might be dwarves and elves, let's say, for an example. So you go into that settlement, you see a sea of faces, you see humans, dwarves, elves. There might be a lot more humans than dwarves and elves, but the presence of dwarves and elves isn't a surprise. But then you see a hulking Goliath walk around the corner. That is not a dominant or minority population in this region and stands out. And it's a good way to give you those kind of contextual clues to go, hey, here are the kinds of people that you're going to be used to seeing in a region, and here are the kinds of people that would be noteworthy just by their presence in the area. Helps you add texture to your world when you're describing things, but it's also really useful for giving players a kind of hint of things being maybe not out of place, but something being unusual. So if your players have been in a town for several weeks and they know that predominantly it's a human town, but there are a decent number of elves and dwarves, and then you describe a tiefling or some other kind of outsider like a Nefrit or a Ganassi, they will really stand out, and that's a way to get your players really focused on a character without you having to say anything about them. So if you want to introduce a character that is really going to take the player's attention in that kind of situation, this is a really good way to do it. Are there disputes, arguments between the peoples? That's a great question. Do the peoples get along? Do the population groups if not, why? What else can we ask about the peoples? So this, ad already? God damn it, Twitch. I really need to figure out a way to get the warning for the ads. In fact, let's find, while some folk are being served ads, I'm paused, don't worry. No ad here, just when I joined. See, there should be no pre-roll ads. It should just be in-line ads. But I'm pretty sure they shouldn't be already. Scrub pen. Twitch seems to have some big financial trouble. They need to do this. Yeah, it's more than just so inconsistent. Like, they have settings to say, do you want to give pre-roll ads or not? And it doesn't seem to matter whether you turn that on or off. People will get pre-roll ads. And then it's, oh, do you want ads for people that are subscribed? People that are subscribed will still get ads. But I think there is a way. There's definitely a way for me to see when an ad is about to come up. So I'm going to write myself a post-it note to figure out an ad warning. I know a couple of other streamers that have got ad warnings, so I'll just ask them. I'm going to stick it to my screen just there. There we go. So once the stream is done and I've forgotten about this interaction because I've got a sieve for a brain, handy note to remind me. Right. Where were we? Arguments, disputes between people. Do the people get along? If not, why? So ethnicities and stuff will come largely under like intelligent races, and what the dominant and minority populations would be. But we can have why are you not working? How do the people of this region feel about outsiders? Because there are a lot of regions and a lot of places where people are very insular, and people from outside the town or the city or the whole region can be very suspicious of them. What are the classes like nobles and commoners? We're probably going to put that somewhere down in oh yeah, that's a good question. Would social class be better for... Yes, I suppose social class would be better in people's. Is there a social class? What does it look like? Go ahead and make that smaller. In fact, let's go ahead and make them all smaller while we're here, so we don't have to do it at once. Size 12. There we go. Let's go. Been possessed by Mario. So we've got what intelligent races live in the region. What is the dominant population and the minority population? Are there any enclaves? Do they get along, those groups? How do they feel about outsiders? Is there a social class, and what does that look like? So we can ask a whole bunch of questions when it comes to peoples, and you can get really into the weeds about it. But a great place to start when it comes to thinking about people specifically is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So let's go ahead and grab a copy of the hierarchy of needs image. And holy mother of pearl, that's large. Okay, so we can pull some information out of this. Some of this will be covered by some of the other kind of boxes, but we can bring some of this in. So when we're thinking about peoples, exactly, Lego Firehawk traditions is exactly where I was going to go with this. Is we can think about what traditions do the people have. Now, that would kind of come under, certainly under religion, for like religious practices, but it makes the most sense here because not all traditions are religious. So in terms of physiological needs, a lot of that is going to come under our geography and assets. So geography and assets will cover the physical world around them and what they have available to them, so food and water and things like that. Safety needs largely covered by defense, so kind of our high level safety needs. Love and belonging is almost certainly going to come in under people's, so this is going to be things like how do they view family and what are their views on kind of friendships and the importance of families and friends and things like that. Esteem might come under a couple of the other ones, but we could probably work that into people as well. And then self-actualization is going to largely be an individual thing, so I don't think we need to worry about this on a regional scale. But traditions is definitely one that we can work in. And then also we want to kind of get something of that love and belonging, that familial element, because that is really important to defining a culture. When you're grouping people together, a lot of the time you want to think about their relationship to family, the familial unit, and their kind of extended support network. So the whole "it takes a village" concept, and think about that. So let's have a think about how to word that in something that's encapsulated in a single sentence. Could you also add something like types of unique slang or sayings that people have? Or does that fall in another category? That could absolutely come into here. So what traditions, it could even come under just a subheading under traditions. But I would imagine that it would come under people for like slang and specific behaviors. Cultural beliefs and community systems. Yeah, that's the one. What does a typical family unit look like? What are the cultural beliefs of the people in this region? We need to make this smaller again, which is good. Then we'll go, how do the people of the region view community? So the interconnectivity, how connected the people would come under like their view of community and what community means to them. Same with kind of family elements would come under kind of community. Then traditions, slangs, and that sort of stuff will come under traditions, cultural beliefs. So that should give us a pretty good framework for that. We'll keep old Maslow up there for a little while because hierarchy needs can always come in handy. And then let's switch over to politics. So we're starting off with what is the political system. That's the high level end of things, because that will dictate so much of what you then go on to ask questions about when it comes to politics. You're going to ask radically different questions about the political makeup of a democracy versus, a totalitarian state or a theocracy. So we've got what is the political system of the region? Is the government more authoritarian, so are they more like a big government, or more libertarian and people are more left to their own devices? Are there multiple political groups? That is a good question. Are there multiple, or what are the multiple? Are there multiple political groups? Who are they? So that will still apply even if you have like a totalitarian regime or a theocracy or a monarchy, you're still going to have groups of people who have political power, even if they aren't in power. So in a monarchy, throughout history, most monarchies have got some kind of lesser nobility and multiple tiers of lesser nobility that have power and influence, even though they're not in power. August says, where would religion fall? Religion has its own section. It is right at the end, right down here. So, is the government more authoritarian or libertarian? Are there multiple political groups? Is there political... My mind is saying discomfort, but discomfort is not the word. Is there political strife? So, unrest. That is exactly the word. So is there political unrest? So if you, in any one of these systems, we might have counter-factions. So using the Jewel Cities as another example. So the politics of the Desk Empire, it is a totalitarian regime with the Empress, the Desk Empress, the Lady of Desk, sat right at the top. But there is political unrest. There are groups that are working to kind of sever the connection of their regions away from the Desk Empire, and there are also groups that want to bring back the old regime. It's Matty P. Here comes trouble, and he's bringing people with him. Welcome, welcome. How does magic interact with politics? That's a great question. So for those of you just joining us, we're doing some world building stuff and things, and we are working on an acronym system for world building called Doppelganger. I have deleted a part of the background. Have I deleted it or just moved it? Danger. Everything is going wrong. I think I have actually deleted it as well. That's fine. We can rebuild. So yeah, we're working on an acronym system for world building that you can approach a region with a bunch of different questions and ask yourself things about, like, the defense and occultism and peoples of a region. Let's go ahead and lock the background so we don't do that again. So we're currently thinking about the politics and what world building questions we can ask about politics when it comes to our high level world building. We've got, how does magic interact with politics? How do the common people feel about the current political climate? How does government maintain power? Force, diplomacy, or trade? That's a great question. How does the government maintain power? Force, diplomacy, trade. We are missing a bunch of question marks. Question marks. Are there groups purposely trying to cause political unrest? Is there political unrest? Are there factions causing this? How does religion interact with politics? How does magic, religion? We'll put magic and religion in the same bracket because a lot of that we'll cover a lot of the specifics of that in the religion box. How are the opposition viewed by the people? How's the government? How do the common people feel about the current political climate? The current regime and any opposition. So that'll give us a pretty decent kind of overview of the political landscape. They have a political system where the Prime Minister changes every 6 weeks. Hey, we're talking about fantasy here, and that is far too ridiculous for fantasy. There is, even in a fantastic world, no one would believe such ridiculous things. Sliding smoothly straight into economics. How often does the system change is actually a really good question. We get there with far too painfully true memes, but it is a good question. How often does the political system change? How often, if at all, and by what means? Let's go ahead and reduce that. Do they get paid for doing so? That's a good question. Is there anywhere we can work that in that isn't just a fresh question? No. Politicians. I think that's gonna the pay is gonna depend so much on what type of system you have, and the way in which you get paid. I'll come back to the pay. Well, let's have a think about economics for a time. So, how does the economic system work? Is it currency, bartering, blood deals, etc.? Is the government economically left, so public spending versus right, economic conservatism? Are the common people economically comfortable? So like I said before, that will dictate a lot of how your players perceive the world based on the kind of economic level of the more common people. If they are not comfortable, then your players are probably going to experience a world that is in decay, that doesn't have investment in any public spending works, where people are poorer, so the crime rates are going to be higher, things like that. If they are economically comfortable, the inverse of those should, in theory, be true. Follow a goal, mate. Thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and immediately set another goal before I forget. Start new goal. Start goal. Vidovi, thank you very much for the Prime subscribe. And that's a great segue for me to actually remember that Prime subs exist. And if you have Amazon Prime and you connect it to your Twitch, you get 1 free Prime sub a month, which means that you don't have to pay anything, but Jeff Bezos has to give me some money. So if you don't already have a channel that you've given your Prime sub to this month, well, this channel would be very grateful for Daddy Bezos's money. So let's have a look. International trade and trade routes. Yes. So what does currency look like if used? Any Kickstarter or stuff to also plug? Kickstarter has ended. It ended last Thursday. We hit our goal. We raised 12,000 and some change in the end. So wait a couple of weeks for Kickstarter to do whatever it is that they do with the money in the interim, and then we get the money and can start spending it and get to work on the book. Phoenix is Daddy Bezos. Yep, I'm scared for life now. Well, you know, I can't think of a more accurate way to describe it. Can't wait to get my grubby hands on the book. Ooh, I'm gonna go off the camera for a second, and then knock everything over and fall over as I come back, you know, as I do, because we want to keep things spicy and make sure there's stuff. I have samples that I've not even looked at, so we can look at them together. I've not even taken them out of the shrink wrapping. So these are end paper and ribbon samples. I know, incredibly exciting stuff. But one of the stretch goals was to upgrade the books to include some small, not really quality of life, well, the ribbons of quality of life stuff, but to upgrade it to be a little nicer. So I asked for some samples for ribbons and end paper. Not that it'll mean anything to you on camera, but the ribbons are really nice. So got a gold one for the special edition cover, which I am the most excited for, and a red one for the standard cover. And then in terms of end paper, I asked for a red and a blue, because I know that there's a lot of blue in the branding of the trade dress for the magazine. And then red, because there's a whole bunch of red in the cover art. Of the two, again, there's not going to be much difference on camera, but between the two of them, the blue has got an ever so slight texture, which is really nice. And the red feels very red, which sounds obvious, but I was hoping for a slightly darker, deeper red, whereas this is more of a primary red. But the blue is real nice. I think we're going to go blue end paper. I don't know why they've sent it in kind of this orientation versus like open out the other way. So we'll probably go blue end paper and red ribbon for the main book. And then black end paper and gold ribbon for the special edition, which is going to be real cool. If you couldn't get the Kickstarter at the time, will there be another way to get it? Yes. So I don't know whether there will be late pledges, because I still need to look at the backer kit kind of interface and see whether there is a way to let people into that weren't back in the Kickstarter itself. So if I can let people into late pledges in the backer kit, I will do that. If not, it will be available at general release via print on demand. So it'll be available through both DriveThruRPG and on Amazon through their Kindle Direct publishing. The quality on the general sale version will not be as good as the version that the people on Kickstarter get, because those print on demand services don't have as high a quality. So they print on uncoated paper and they don't have ribbons and fancy end paper and things. But there will be a way to get a version of it, even if you missed out on the Kickstarter and we can't do late backing. I'm hoping we can do some late backing, because that would be good. Let's see, what have we missed? Blood red, yes. What is considered contraband? No other way to say this in chat without trouble. I know exactly what you mean. So let's go ahead back to our economics. What is we can put that in assets, I think. Like, what is contraband? International trade. I knew I'd missed one. So what does international trade look like in this region? Who controls the major trade? So that would be who controls trade routes, who sets kind of trade prices, and who decides what goods are legal. So this is a great one to think about, especially in a fantasy world where there is a better chance that you're going to have things like trade guilds, and you're going to have different people setting these questions and setting the rules for these things depending on what the thing itself that's being sold is. So you can imagine in our fantasy world where we have magic items, chances are that it's going to be a different group responsible for setting the rules and regulations around the trade of magic items than it is around the trade of grain, you know? What items are scarce or in bountiful supply, we'll put that in assets, I think. What is the currency exchange rate? Or are there different types of currency in the region? That is a really good question. How does the economic system here work? So what is the exchange rate with other nations? What goods will be taxed? I assume either everything or nothing. Maybe not, because I feel like our modern standards of taxation laws probably wouldn't apply, but tax is a general thing. So how does taxation work just generally is an excellent question. Is there a universal currency? Or is there a universal currency? Do adventurers have to pay taxes on what they loot? I imagine maybe. What goods would be taxed more? Maybe, yeah. Let's have a look at taxation. So how does taxation work in the region? So that would be things like what goods are taxed. How does it impact adventurers? How does magic impact the economy is a great question. Let's go ahead and drop that to 10. Need to run for a short while. Have fun without me. We will make sure not to burn anything down while you're gone. Actually, I'm not sure I can promise that. We'll endeavour to save your work again. Excellent point. I haven't saved since last. We'll endeavour not to burn anything down while you're away. So I think it's a pretty good foundation for our economy. So let's go on to law. So all we've got so far for law is who makes the law and how are the laws made. So that's largely going to come down to kind of the interplay between law and politics, but we also need to know how are laws enforced. So that will kind of dip over into defense a little bit as well. Is there a court system? Excellent question. What happens to criminals? So the punishment system. In terms of punishment system, the recent the Lost Omen Traveler's Guide, the Pathfinder Lost Omen's Traveler's Guide, my brain. One of the more recent Pathfinder books has got an excellent crime and punishment section that's got tables for a bunch of different crimes, what their punishment is, and then also kind of expanding context for what happens to like serial criminals and what happens if you've committed more than one crime and stuff like that. So that's an excellent table to draw on. Just an excellent book overall for world building, really. The whole premise of it is, what does normal life look like in the inner sea region of the Pathfinder universe? So it kind of goes through this whole process, but for a specific region. But it shows you what does life look like for a rural commoner, for an urban commoner, what is currently the state of fashion in the urban environment, how does crime and punishment work, what's the cost of housing and things like that. It goes really in depth, and it's a really useful world building tool. So it's Lost Omen's Travel Guide, I believe is what it's called. The name keeps escaping me. I'm gonna have a look and see what it is called. World Guide, Mwangi Expanse, Lost Omen's Travel Guide. That is just exactly what it is called. Yeah, that is exactly what it's called. Well worth checking out. It's probably my favourite RPG book that's come out this year. Are there people classes immune to the laws? Ooh. Do any groups have diplomatic immunity? Oh, when we talk about this section in the actual video for this, that'll be coming this week, when we go over law and we get to the diplomatic immunity bit, I'm going to have to take the clip from Lethal Weapon 2 of Rutger holding his diplomatic immunity up. Such a good scene. Immunity. Danny Glover, it's just been revoked. Such a good film. Love those films. So, who makes the laws? How they're made? How they're enforced? Is there a court system? What happens to criminal? What's the punishment system? Do any groups have diplomatic immunity? How does the law treat magic? So magic, I imagine, how does magic affect X is going to come up for every one of these. Like, gosh darn it, Twitch, with your ads. So we'll wait for those that have got ads to finish getting them. While we're doing that, I am going to save my work, because we want to do that. We're going to see whether we can get any of Maslow. We'll have a think about whether Maslow could be deployed for this. I don't think so. Not for the law. So I suppose. So we've got who makes the laws, how the law's made, how they're enforced, what's the court system, what's the punishment system, any diplomatic community, how does the law treat magic, what's some famous like criminal groups, who are some famous criminal groups, because most regions have. Can laws be changed, or are they written by the gods? So we can put that in who makes the laws. So politicians, single ruler, gods. Nasty does ads again. God damn it, Twitch. What would we be doing so many ads for? Hopefully, I've got my sticky note now saying to figure out how the ad warnings work. So hopefully from next week, at least we won't get caught unawares from the ads. Maybe it's actually in my stream manager. That would be a sensible place to put it, right? Manage your stream. Monetize your stream. That feels like it should be a thing. Nope, it's just a whole bunch. I can add a bunch of buttons to run more ads. But can't say anything to show me the upcoming ads. Manage poll, manage goals, start watch party, stop raids, clip, add stream marketing. No, I don't immediately see any way for me to see when the ads are coming, which is really annoying. Are there any unique laws? Are there any laws unique to this region? That's a great opportunity to do some really interesting world building by thinking about what things have specifically happened in this place that they've had to make laws about that don't happen elsewhere. I think that's a pretty good spread for law. So let's go to geography. So for geography, we've got what does the geography of the region look like? Is it mountainous plains, sky islands, etc.? What is the climate of the region, and has it been impacted by the peoples within the region? Are there any magical geographical elements in the region, and are there any cosmological differences in your world? Extra moons, binary star systems, great fissures in the sky where the pure, untempered schism of chaos bleeds through, the usual stuff. So again, we've got the magic angle covered with are there any magical geological elements in the region? Are there any natural wonders in the region? any natural wonders in the region. So that's a great way to kind of start adding some spice to the different areas of your world by adding 1 or 2 natural wonders, be they great volcanoes or, you know, towering statues of fallen empires, that kind of things. Although that wouldn't really be a natural wonder, but it would be in the geography. How does the geography affect house building? That's a great question. How does geography impact construction? Construction feels too broad. Architecture. Impact the architecture of the region. So we've got like houses on stilts, houses underground, etc., etc. You're going to spend hours finishing the system and then realize you spelled doppelganger wrong. Now, the funny thing is, I have definitely gone and double checked that several times, and I'm fairly sure that I haven't. Doppelganger. Doppelganger. I'm sure. I've copy pasted it. It's right. I don't believe that it's not. Doppelganger. Like, immediately before starting the stream, I googled it as well because I was like, feels like a word. Feels like a word that's easy to go. But still, as soon as you say it, I'm like, the doubt seeps into my brain. I'm like, God damn it. Right, so how does it impact the architecture of the region? What's it look like? What's the climate? Magical geographical elements, cosmological elements, natural wonders, and the architecture. How does it impact travel? Travel is a great option. How does the geography of the region impact travel? Technically, the A is an A. I appreciate all the prompts to save my work because I'm awful for it. How are we looking? I think geography is looking pretty good. That should give a good start. So let's have a look at assets. So assets is a really broad category. So things like food, fuel, precious metal materials, those kinds of things, you could list on and on and on. So for technology, like, does the region have any notable? How do you spell notable? Notable, there we go. Unique technology. Region have any notable unique technology? Gems should be gems. Or maybe it should have been jams. Uncut jams. Well, what resources do they have? So this can probably go food, fuel, precious metals, material goods, material girls in a material world. And then we can slim down some of the extraneous listings. What is the region's main export and import? Uncut jam. Straight from the jar, no spoon. Jam. Fortunately, I have to go, otherwise the major forgetfulness will haunt me tomorrow. Have fun and protect the rest of the evening. Thank you very much for stopping by, Minnie. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And have a good sleep. Now, there was something that earlier on I was like, this can go in the assets, but I didn't put it in the assets at the time. And now I'm regretting it. I know I was talking about the Unsullied at the time, but I can't remember what the context was. I guess it would just be what's their main export import would probably cover that. Does the region have any notable or unique technology? What is contraband? What resources do they have? Are any of their resources contested? Any of their resources contested by another region? What resources are still hidden? That's a great one. What resources are still hidden in the region? Contested. Are there any resources contested by another region? And then that made me think of another thing, but I can't remember what it was. It's immediately left my brain. Any of the resources contested? Oh man, that's really like souped out of my brain. As I was writing the contested, I was like, here's what the next thing's going to be, and it's just gone. What's contraband? What resources, if found, will spark wars? That feels like it's dancing around the contested resources. Lacking there. Thank you, Lego. That is exactly what it was. What resources are scarce? Scarce is a weird word. Scarce is a really weird word. It doesn't look right. No, that is right. What resources are scarce in the region? Import and export, notable unique technology, contraband, magic. Are there any magical resources? Magic's great. Magic can just be a question in pretty much every single one of these boxes. It's a free square in our world building bingo. Is just magic. So that might be things like spell components, ancient runes, magical creatures, magical creatures, peoples and assets. Where would we put? I feel like I'm insulting magical creatures by not putting them in peoples, but it doesn't feel like they fit. Assets feels wrong to just categorize the creatures by assets. So I'm going to put it in occultism. I'm going to do a cop out and put it in occultism. Are there any magical creatures in this region? We'll make it notable magical creatures, because I assume most of the people that will be using this framework will be doing it for a fantasy RPG like D&D, so the assumption will be that yes, there are magical creatures. Any notable magical creatures? Maybe how do magical creatures affect the region? Could be. I've got magical geographical elements. Has it been impacted by the peoples or creatures of the region? Catch all in there. And I think assets might be good. What do they have? What's the main import and export? Do they have any unique technology? What is contraband or illegal? Any other resources contested by another region? What resources are still hidden? What's scarce? And are there any magical resources? So that brings us to Nemesis. What resources have dwindled due to people? So we could get that into scarce in the region and go the scarce in the region / being reduced by the peoples. So Nemesis, who are the enemies of this region? How did they become enemies? Are they engaged in an active conflict? And what do their enemies want? Is there a world nemesis? Yes. Is there a world threatening nemesis? Is there a world threatening threat? Is what my brain wants to write. Creature or event the region is working against. I kind of wish I'd stuck with, is there a world threatening threat? Is there a threatening world threatening threat that the region is threatened by? So what else would we want to know about the enemies of a people? So how did they become enemies? Conflict resolution. Amazing. What is the region's approach to conflict resolution? So is it going to be aggression, diplomacy, diplomacy, baked goods? Right, that's the one silly answer I'll put in there, is baked goods. What methods does the enemy use to infiltrate the region? All out war, political. Are there any secret enemy factions in the region? Jams. Yeah. Any baked goods or jams? By the end of this evening, I'm not going to be able to pronounce jam properly anymore. I will super elongate the A on it, even when I am actually referring to the preserve. Are there any secret enemy factions in the region? What do their enemies want? We've got that. What are they doing to achieve their goals, Mr. Squidward? Yeah. Jams. Yeah, it's exactly what it's like. It's exactly how my brain has rotten. Pretty good. So who are the enemies? How did they become enemies? Why are they engaged in conflict? What do they want? Is there a world-ending threat that there's a problem with? What is the region's approach to conflict resolution? Oh, excuse me. Are there any secret enemy factions in the region? Who are the enemies? Are there multiple? And do they work together? I'm going to eat some jam now. Thank you very much for stopping by, Nasted. I hope you enjoyed, and enjoy your sleep. Are there multiple, and do they work together? Together forever. Anything else for enemies and nemesises? I was trying to read Nemesis backwards. Cis-M-N. I think we're probably good on the Nemesis front. So let's go goals. So it's hard. Immediately I'm like, it's hard to go just beyond what's the short, medium and long term goals, because those can cover everything when it comes to goals. But we can ask questions like, how does the region work to achieve its goals? So things like, do they use violence, diplomacy, magic, etc.? What what is the reason for their goals? So what is the... So let's go... We'll go government in terms of goals, because this is specifically... When we're talking about the goals of a region is in of itself not going to have any goals. It'll be kind of driven politically. So what's the government's short-term goal, medium-term goal, and long-term goal? Term goal and long-term goal. How does the region achieve its goals? And then why do they have these goals? Why do they have these goals? So that might come up more naturally, but it is a good one to prompt people with, rather than them just going, right, okay, choosing a goal. At least asking them to think of the why can be useful to get people thinking more deeply. And what's the sub goals, such as they want peace with X, but also trying to start war? Imagine that's going to come under like the broader goal setting, but that's a great point of going, what are the public goals versus the secret goals? Do they have secret goals? Do they have a secret tunnel? Secret tunnel, secret tunnel. I feel like secret jams. How do the region work? Oh, okay, we've got magic. We managed to slide magic in there, so that's fine. We've got a free bingo card. Does the public support their goals? That's a great question. Do the public there we go. Gotta give it all. Oh, why not? What is standing in the way of achieving their goals? So short, medium, long term. Why do you have the goals? Do the public support them? What's standing in the way? How do you work to achieve them? Do you have any secret goals? I think that's a pretty good spread for goals, especially when you're working at kind of high level and looking at like a really zoomed out view of a world. You probably don't want to get in the weeds of, well, here are all the specific 800 little events that need to happen to achieve these goals. You just want to go, right, okay, this region wants to crush this region because vengeance. Or the main goal of this region is to go and get X or Y. As an example, in Dual Cities, we have the region of Novaris, who was at war with a region called the Vale. They lost, and their king was in prison. So one of Novaris's goals in the short term is recover their king, free their king. One of their kind of medium-term goals is to secure the Time Stone, a resource off the coast of Novaris and the Vale, which is what they fought over. And then their long-term goal is to crush the Vale. Need a jam fairy. Jam fair. I can't even remember what that uncut jams is for. I know it from TikTok, but I don't know who said it. But the jam fairy would be that person. Right, so let's move away from goals for a little and think about executive. So executive is the top of our political system. So who is the leader of this region? How do they come to power? What do they offer the people? What is their biggest strength? What is their greatest weakness? So what is their goal? Because executive goals might not align with like government and regional goal. Or what are their goals? What are their secret goals? What are their goals? We can incorporate that here. Do they have secret goals? Who are the loyal opposition? Who are their opponents? What's their biggest strength? What's their greatest weakness? How can we work magic into this again? How do we get our free bingo card? Do they have magic? I can't immediately think of a way to get magic in there. Biggest strength, greatest weakness. Who are their allies? So, they employ specific magic to keep in power. What do they offer to the people? How do they keep power is a great question. Just a generally great question. What do they offer the people? How do they keep power? So that would be things like violence, magic, subterfuge, etc. I think that's a jam. I keep my power with jam. I think it's probably enough for executive, at least initially. And that'll take us to religion. So religion, we've got, are there gods? What is the primary religion of the region? How do people worship the gods? Do the gods grant their followers magic? Free bingo. How important is religion to the common people in day-to-day life? What is the separation? What is there a separation between church and state? How much power does the theocracy have over the government? So the separation between church and state. Are there any forbidden religions? Thank you very much for joining Monsieur Matipi. I don't even know what time it is for you over there. Like 8 million years in the future. I assume that you're off to work. In which case, enjoy. Wait, yeah, it'd be Monday for you, right? Because it's in the future. In the future. Yeah. Well, enjoy your day, my dear. Are there gods? We went today just filming. Ooh, fancy. Hey, filming is work. Like, are there gods? What's the primary religion of the region? How do they worship? Do they grant magic? How important is religion? Is there a separation between church and state? Are there any forbidden religions? What else can we get for religion? Are there any lost religions? Lost or secret? So where's my mouse? Are there gods? Do they walk the earth? I feel like whether the gods walk the earth is an important question to know. See if we can think of one more religion question to round us out. So, do the gods exist and do they walk the earth? What's the primary religion? How do people worship their gods? Do they get magic from them? How important is religious? Can the players kill gods? What are some notable heralds and saints? Another ad? Damn, Twitch. Really like piddling on my Twitch, like. I like that Phoenix has pinned figure out the Twitch ad warning to the mod chat on Discord. 5 ads? Oh my gosh, that's too many ads. But once the ads are done, we will have a beautiful page of stuff and things, which is nice. So we're going to save that because, you know, we remembered to save our work. And we're going to wait for everybody to get out of the ads. And then hopefully by next time I'll figure out how to get it. Oh god, they're not terrible. 7? What? What is Twitch doing? Like 7 ads? In what world is 7 ads okay? Like, I know that Twitch are really driving in. They're like, oh yeah, you know, give your viewers 3 minutes of ads in an hour to get the most money. But y'all have definitely had more than 3 minutes of ads in the last hour. Like, welcome Bob. Arrived just in time to miss out those ads. But then, inevitably, we'll get more ads. So, we put what are some of the notable heralds and saints of the religions, and that fills out the sheet pretty nicely. So we have our 12 points of world building, the 12 points of our world building compass, and we have our doppelganger. So go ahead and save that. And then where are my dragons? Where is OBS is what I want to go. Nope, that's Affinity. Display capture, window capture. I want window capture, right? I want that. And then that. And then that. Yeah, there we go. We figured out how the technology works. Sorry, because I haven't done it all evening. Cool. So now we can open up the Jewel City and have a quick looky-loo. So for those of you that haven't seen this before, this is the map of my next campaign setting, the Jewel Cities of Talabar. The map itself was made in Incarnate, and the program that we're going to be using to do the world building is called Legend Keeper. That's what all of these pins and things are. In the last 2 weeks since we were last together, I don't think I've done a huge amount of meaningful world building. I think the last time we were together we did a lot of Howling Badlands stuff, and we drew some cards from the deck of Many Quests, which is a really cool world building resource. I've got a hotkey for it, so I'll throw the link in there. So I think we'll go in and let's choose Eildal, which is one of the regions in our world. And you can see I've already started to kind of put some of this information in before I started working on the doppelganger system. So let's go ahead and doppelganger and then make that as large as we possibly can, and then start doing this. Waiting on my deck of Many Quests to ship. I believe there might be, don't quote me on this, but I feel like there may be some shipping complications or something. I'm sure Steve mentioned something about getting some grief from the warehouse where they're stored, or moving warehouse or something like that. So if there's a delay on that end, that might be why. So defense, occultism, people, politics. Economics. Law. Geography. Assets. Nemesis. Goals. My brain is slowly starting to whittle down. Executive and religion. Okay, so defense. The biggest thing we know about the region of Eldal when it comes to defense is they are protected by the Order of the Silver Gauntlet, which is one of the free companies of Talabar. They were employed by the King of Eldal about 100 years ago to deal with the Mendax rebellion. Mendax is a corruption demon that took over one of the principal cities of Mornburg, and the King of Eldal at the time hired the free company of the Order of the Silver Gauntlet to take care of that, and since they have become the de facto military for that region. In terms of occultism, we have heavy kind of outsider / infernal influences in this region due to the Mendax rebellion, which I believe I actually have linked. The Mendax rebellion. So in terms of peoples, our dominant population, which you can see I've already got here on the side in my little pre-built template, our dominant population is human, and we have some minority elf population. We probably have other minority populations, we just haven't got to them yet. In terms of politics, the region of Eldal is centre-right authoritarian, nationalistic, believe in individual wealth and prosperity and class structure, but they are willing to spend government money in a limited way for the good of the people, which is why they kind of spent money to hire the Order of the Silver Gauntlet and kind of clear out the corruption that was in Mornburg. But then since Mornburg is kind of like, they kicked out the demonic element, but they haven't invested in Mornburg to kind of rebuild it. They're happy to get rid of the acute symptoms, but not any underlying cause, and no long-term treatment in an economic sense. So in terms of law, have we got anything on law written already? No. So let's go and let's use this thing. So who makes the laws? The laws are made by the king. Laws enforced by the Order of the Silver Gauntlet. Is there a court system? There is a court system, but it is very, very heavy on corporal and capital punishment, less so on imprisonment. So Eldal is a region that is like teetering on entering grimdark territory, so we want to enforce that through what we do. Do any groups have diplomatic immunity? Yes, because there are political goals going on that we have written down. So political goals, King Halfdan knows that it won't be long before the Desk Empire turns their gaze towards the Island of Or and tries to make headways in conquering this region. And despite the fact that the Desk Empire is the primary trade partner for Eldal when it comes to things that they export, he believes that Eldal is going to be kind of like the tip of the spear in the resistance when the time comes that the Desk Empire turns its attention and wants to cross the cut. If we don't zoom out, weirdly. We have zoomed. We have strayed. There we go. Is that too much? That looks about right. Where was I? So yeah, the King of Eldal, King Halfdan, knows the Desk Empire is going to turn its attention towards this island eventually. So his political goals are trying to maintain the current trade relationships they have while slightly undermining the Empire, and also building alliances with their neighbours. So in terms of diplomatic immunity, we'd probably have some from Iruxis, as well as the final region and the Empire. Desk Empire. So then thinking about how does the law treat magic, I have made some notes on this, I believe. So magic items are licensed by the state. They are for sale, but they are licensed and monitored by the state, and there is a limit on what powerful magical weapons you're able to buy and sell. And there is some level of spellcasting as well. Who are some famous criminal groups? So that would mainly be down to the Mendax Rebellion. And are there any laws unique to this region? So I think they probably have some kind of unique law pertaining to the corruption and the Mendax Rebellion. I don't know what that would be, but it could be something to do with kind of screenings for kind of infernal influence or demonic possession and things like that. And that's something that can be figured out at a later date. In terms of geography, we have a map, so we don't have to do too much when it comes to geography, because we know what the region looks like. Climate-wise, I have a climate map, so I know what that is. Any magical geographical elements in the region, again, that's noted on our map. We have the Crimson Glade, we also have the Forest of Spikes, and we have Fendrel's Ruin, that bay. Are there any cosmological differences in the world? That is covered on a world scale. Any natural wonders in this region? Again, that's going to be covered by our map. How does the geography impact the architecture in the region? That is a good question. I don't think it will. I think architecturally, I'm thinking kind of medieval period, sort of very standard fantasy. So your stone bottom, wood top, half timber houses, very leaning, and Warhammer Old World is the style we're going for. And then assets. So again, a lot of the assets we can actually see on the map, because I've gone through and added some, well, I say a lot. Some of the assets we can see on the map because I've gone through and added them. Things like coal, different magic items, what monsters are present. A lot of that gets covered by our map Worldbuilding. In terms of nemesis and enemies, again, we would know that we have Mendax the Defiler, who is the corruption kind of devil demon thing. We'd also have potentially the Desk Empire in terms of the nemesis. So how do they become enemies? We know how they became enemies with Mendax the Defiler. Mendax the Defiler is a herald of Pravis the Corruptor, which is one of the evil gods. Focuses primarily on physical corruption and corrupted the city of Mornburg. So we have the background of that built in. We also have the goals already built in because we have political goals here. In terms of executive, at the top there is King Halfdan. So how did he came to power? Hereditary. A hereditary ascension. What does he offer the people? So he offers the people security, stability, prosperity. Very like 1984 style. how do they keep the power? So remains in power thanks to contract with the Order of the Silver Gauntlet. Order of the Silver Gauntlet. The biggest strength would again be the Order of the Silver Gauntlet. The biggest weakness would be the Order of the Silver Gauntlet. If that free company were to leave Eldal, then they are screwed. Political goals would be destroy any remnants of the Defiler cult. And then who are their opponents and allies? I actually don't know. But opponents, allies, that's something we can think about. And then religion. So they worship Hagen, who is the god of strength and battle, otherwise known as the warrior. That's the primary religion of the region. Worship him through battle. And then religion is, I'd say, like moderately important. And there'd be no or little separation between church and state. So Halfdan is very openly worshipping of Hagen and believes that that is the way forward. So that's a very quick and broad overview of how you can use the doppelganger system to approach kind of a world building session and to figure out how you would go about adding details for your world. I think that brings us to like 10 to midnight. And I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up. So what I'm going to do, same as we do every single week here, I'm going to take like 10 minutes to chat and answer questions and things. So if you have any questions about anything relating to stuff we've talked about this evening, world building in general, RPGs in general, anything in general, throw them down in the chat. And whilst you're thinking of your questions, I'll do my weekly wrap up. So my name is Anto. This has been Icarus Games. We do these streams pretty much every Sunday from 10 p.m. UK time, and we run for about 2 hours to around about midnight. I also have a YouTube channel where I have a whole bunch of videos on all kinds of topics, including world building, videos on D&D 5e, Pathfinder 2nd edition, running the game, all that kind of good stuff. This week I will be making a video about this doppelganger system. I'll be making the template available so you can go use it for your own purposes and help build out your own worlds. I also have a Patreon where I produce a magazine called SideQuest every month. It is a digital magazine and it is packed with content for both players and GMs of the 5e system. The latest issue, issue 17, came out on Saturday. It is a spooky October Halloween themed issue. There is a skeleton ancestry to let you play as a skeleton. There is a new series called Reforged, where I take monsters from the SRD that are honestly, frankly boring, and I spice them up. This issue I'm looking at skeletons, and there are 8 new skeleton themed monsters in this issue, including a new skeleton minion, a rebuilt skeleton warrior, a new like lurking stealthy skeleton that can like wear people's flesh, which is just horrific, a new skeleton giant, a skeleton wizard, skeleton controller. There's a bunch of stuff in there. And then finally there is a new druid subclass called the Circle of the Parasite. You have this symbiotic relationship with a parasite in your body, and you can use it to manifest a whole bunch of powers and transform your body instead of wild shaping. Streambeats. The link to that is down in the chat as well. I also have a Discord where you can get together with a whole bunch of other like-minded RPG lovers and talk about all things RPGs. There is a channel for the Jewel Cities in the Discord where we can talk about that region, and I can post ideas and we can discuss elements of the world building in between these live streams. So go ahead and join that. And then if you want to help support the channel in any other way, there's a Drive-Thru RPG page that has all the back issues of SideQuest magazine, as well as a whole bunch of other resources there, and that helps the channel and keeps keep the lights on. Just turn all the lights off. Obviously don't need them. My brain is soup. Lego Flyhawk says, how would you approach something like making the details for a city? Almost exactly the same. So I would use the same approach. So use the doppelganger method. What is the defense of the city? How does the city approach magic? Who lives in the city? What does the city-based politics look like? Economically, how is the city doing? Is there trade in the city? What's popular trade in the city? Where are they making their money from? The law. What's the law in the city? Is there a city guard, a city watch? Are they lax? Are they strict, etc.? What's the geography around the city and in the city, but around is where I usually start. What assets do the city have? Like, why is this settlement a city versus a town or a village? Cities usually build up where a lot of people congregate, and a lot of people congregate because of assets and great location, etc. Nemesis, I'd look at what are the threats to the city, so that might be invaders or, death cults, things like that. Goals, I'd look at what the political goals of the rulers in the city, and then executive for who rules the city and who makes all the decisions. And then religion, what's the religion in the city? It's the same process, and you can use it and go down to excuse me, you could go down to a very small settlement with it. You just would have fewer answers, obviously, because you have less to work with. Oh, oh dear me. So if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat while I mute myself, because a bunch of water went down the wrong way. Oh my! So yeah, if anyone else has any other questions or topics, throw them down in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to wind up and round out the evening. I'm going to make sure that all of my rewards backlog is sorted. Make sure I'm not missing anyone. So we're not save your work, which we have done. And then we are clear. Perfect. What is on the list of things one cannot read? Exactly. Welcome, Crimson Rockstar. You've arrived. And unfortunately, right at the end. So we're just about to say goodnight for the evening. But yeah, I hope this stream has been helpful. I hope that you've enjoyed a look at my process for world building. There will be a video that kind of expands on Doppelganger and makes all of the resources related to that available, coming to the YouTube channel on Friday, this coming Friday, whatever the date that is. Let's have a look. What date is that going to be? November the 4th. So that'll be available then. This has been Icarus Games. We do this every single week. My name is Anto, but until next time, happy gaming.